I'm Karima, and I'm just going to ask everybody to go around and introduce yourselves. And before we do, I just want to say that this is really meant to be organic and conversational. I do have guiding questions, but if something pops up for you and bubbles up for you, just let it flow, let it go, ask each other questions. We don't have to follow a format, but we do have some really juicy stuff we want to get into. So let's start. So if you'll just go around, and for the sake of time, we're just going to kind of go in a whatever this semicircle formation we're in, and say your name, where you're from, whatever that means to you, anything else you want us to know about you.
Hi, I'm Reverend Janice Smith, and I live here in Atlanta, Georgia. From California, I have to put that in because I'm a California fan. Do a lot of social justice work with street kids and very active in my church. I'm 81, living my life, loving it. I've been married, and I've been in a relationship and married for 31 years, celebrated this year. So I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here, and I'm a talker, so you'll have to hang in with me.
Hi, my name is Nasanti Yahuti. I live in Conyers, by way of California. Yes. Have to stick that in, I haven't been here that long. But a lot of social justice work. This is the first opportunity I've had since I've been in Georgia to join the family and put some good news out. And I'm 77 years old.
I'm Karima. I am 49 and am from Atlanta. I live in East Point. I also do a lot of social justice work. I'm also doing some policy work, so doing some inside-outside strategy stuff here. And I'm married. My wife and I have been married for 5 years together, for off and on 25 or so. Yeah.
My name is Genesis. I'm from Biloxi, Mississippi. I'm 37 years old. I'm an artist and activist and curator, and I'm happy to be here.
My name is Ashby Kumbahi. I'm 27 years old. I know I'm the baby in the room. I'll probably take it. I live right down the street-ish in College Park, and I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Hey.
Yes. I am married. I've been with my wife. This is our 5th year together, and not quite married 2 years, but close to.
All right.
Yes.
Well, welcome, everybody, and just shout out to our audience. Woo, woo. Thank you all for being here and contributing to the energy. We appreciate you all and your energy so much. So Marianne wasn't able to be with us today. She fell ill, but she did send me some group norms that I'll just name really quickly. And if you have some that you'd like to offer, please feel free. So the first one she sent was take space, make space, share the air. So if you're typically quiet, nudge yourself a little bit to take up a little bit more space and talk a little bit more. If you typically talk a lot, take a few steps back and let some other people come forward. Listen to understand. We're hardwired to listen to respond, but listening to understand would be preferable. Obviously, respect one another, use I statements, and contribute to a brave space. Can you, and this is truly for anyone who wants to answer, we don't have to go around in a circle, we can just popcorn out, but can you talk about a pivotal moment in history or a personal experience that you've had that significantly impacted your understanding or acceptance of your identity? That's a lot of words, so I'll just condense it really quick. Have you experienced something that shaped who you are?
As a lesbian, or just who you are?
Oh, that's such a good contextualization. I guess for the purposes of our time together, as a lesbian, as a queer person.
I think probably it was church. Because there's so much negative in the history of being raised in church, and the experience of church being freeing was pivotal for me. Trying to answer a spiritual call for myself and having all the old tapes that play. Getting rid of the tapes was that pivotal freeing moment, and that actually came. Well, you were there. Yeah, it actually came in Unity Fellowship Church about almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's unusual to hear that it came from the church. Usually, we hear stories about the church being a source of pain and shame for those of us who identify as queer. So it's wonderful and heartening to hear that you had the complete opposite experience.
I think for me, being raised around my elders was pivotal for me growing up, excuse me, in Mississippi, where my father's from. He's from a small town called Roxy, right outside of Natchez. It's very small. A lot of time when I would be there as my uncles, my aunties, and they would express to us who our grandparents were, who Reverend Clyde Briggs, my grandfather, was. He died at age 42, but he was a civil rights activist who was very much involved with voting rights and putting himself and his community first, but putting himself at risk in front of his community. Not saying martyrdom is something to aspire to, but understanding that at a young age of where I came from really shaped me understanding who I am and my potential. And I feel like the elders are what the most valuable things in our community, because, I don't mean to say things, you know what I mean, valuable in our community because of the wisdom, the strategy, all of the things that if we cannot connect with it, it's just a missing layer, and it doesn't have to be that way. That's right. So that's what shaped me a lot, was my elders.
Lovely, thank you. I'm looking at you, Ash, but you don't have to.
I mean, I'm still thinking about like growing up in the church and how like central that was to my, like, yes, my queerness, but also my blackness, my southernness. And I have a little bit of an opposite perspective. I grew up in a Pentecostal church and extremely homophobic, no queer folks around me. But somehow in my little adolescent brain, I thought it was a good idea to bring my very first girlfriend to a play that my church put on. Terrible idea, terrible idea. Because after that, immediately after that, she's a preacher's daughter. She came back to me and she's like, what we're doing is sinful. We got to stop this. And I say that was a pivotal moment for me because even though I was raised up to believe that this was sinful, and she had that like aha moment, this is not okay. But in my mind, I was just like, this is the most natural thing I've ever done. I cannot believe that the God who governs this whole world doesn't want me to do this thing right here. This feels so good. So, yeah, I think after that, it changed my own relationship with the church that I was attending, my battle with spirituality and religion. But even that one girlfriend, you know, we still maintained a friendship somewhat afterwards, and I saw her grappling with her faith, and to me, I was just like, we just experienced the same thing. How could we walk away with two completely different perspectives?
Yes. Oh, yeah, I felt that one. Reverend Janice, did you want to add to that?
I think she said it pretty much for me. I think at a very early age, I knew that I remember that song, I'm a Girl Watcher? That was a secret. That was a secret. I would just smile and I'd be in mixed company. I didn't want anyone to know that, you know, for some reason I realized I was a girl watcher. Being an identical twin, there was always that, which one, my parents had a party or something, we danced, who was going to be the boy, who was going to be the girl, that kind of thing. There was always that, you know, male-female thing going on. And I didn't understand, and I actually did not realize that you are a lesbian until I was 50 years old. It was a process of going through a lot of different things until I realized, and that reality came to me because one of my sons was gay, and I was working for the sheriff's department, and we did these classes, and the deputy says, I'm going to do a workshop. There's a gay church in South Central Los Angeles. I said, there's what? I want to learn more about my son, So that's what I went. And the more I heard about Carl Bishop preaching, the more I understood me. Until one day I said, you know what, you're gay. All of these feelings you've had, all of these traumas that you've had, everything in your life. And then when he explains it, and he talks about erasing old tapes and different feelings, and this came right across the pulpit and taught us how to be who we are. And that's when I owned who I was. And from the very day that I owned who I was, I've been gay ever since. My neighbors knew I'm gay. Everywhere I go, my doctor, everybody knew I was gay. That did it. It was, what he taught us was so important. And from that day forward, then I began to do the same thing and share, and the boldness and the power and all of that comes with it. And it's something that you just have to share with everybody that you meet. That's me.
It's interesting. Before we started the panel, the three of us were talking about an experience that I had in the early 90s at the Highlander Center. I came out in the 90s to my parents really under duress. It was a really traumatic experience with my first girlfriend. My parents had a decent amount of prominence within the Black community here in Atlanta, and I had the audacity to be traipsing around the city with my girlfriend. And people were calling my father anonymously saying, do you know your daughter's hanging out with a lesbian, and hanging up? And so it was really awful. And but at the time, I thought that I was really just in love with her. I had never been attracted to another girl before. I was a teenager. I was 18. I just thought I loved her. And I was at the Highlander Center doing some organizing with Freedom Schools. And I was in a bathroom waiting to take a shower, and there was another girl standing next to me also waiting to take a shower. There was a girl coming out of the shower, and the girl standing next to me was completely naked. And I was just speechless. And she's like, are you gonna get in or what? And I was like, and it literally struck me like a bolt of lightning that I am actually gay.
Yes.
I didn't know about bisexuality at the time. It was either you're gay or you're straight. There was no in between, because in between was really gay anyway, so quote unquote. But that was so pivotal to me, and it was so amazing that we were already organizing, and I'm having this experience where I realized that it has expanded beyond my girlfriend, who I was so desperately in love with. It was, this is exactly who I am. And that was deeply pivotal. So thank you all for that. I want to also, Reverend Janice and Genesis and I were talking earlier about religion, and some of us have brought up religion already in the conversation. I want to know, we heard from you already about how it impacted your development as a woman, as a lesbian. Has anybody else had that, and you also talked about it as well, anybody else have that really like, this is how religion has shaped me as a lesbian? You also talked about it too, Reverend Janice. So I guess it would only be the two of us.
So I was actually raised Muslim. Both my parents converted before my brothers and I were born from Christianity, one from Catholicism, my father's Baptist. But we didn't really go to the mosque either. My father was really interesting the way he raised us. So in the Quran, when it's referred to as God, it says he. And when we would read out loud, he would prohibit us from saying he. Instead of saying he, would replace it with God. Because I'm the only girl in my family, so I think he didn't want me raised thinking that God was a man. When if there is a God, of course, there's not going to be a man-woman thing. It's just beyond that, right? And I think when he used to go to the mosque, but when I started going at a young age, I think he realized like I'd have to be separate. So there was a lot of patriarchal things, and my father's has a lot of issues. Trust me, when it comes to like patriarchy, like most American men have misogyny and patriarchy underlying, but he really had the wherewithal to say, well, we're gonna do at-home worship, because he just really he never wanted me to feel limited by my gender. He didn't want to take me places where a woman could not lead prayer, right? I think nowadays we do have mosques and churches where women lead prayer, of course, but that really shaped me into not seeing myself as other or seeing my femininity as a weakness, right? It just, the equality of it all was something that was like, I was raised on. If my brothers had to do something tedious and strenuous, I had to do it with them. It was no differentiating. I didn't even know like a separate gender, so I like got older and like took a bath with my brothers, and I was like, you have something I don't have.
Right,
You know?
right.
So I think being raised with a liberal form of Islam, very focused on love and justice and deep compassion, underrooted compassion for all things. I think as an adult, and there were issues when I did come out to my family, of course, there were still some issues, but I think as an adult, just having that foundation, being okay with who I am, has served me in all aspects of my life, for sure.
Wow, what a blessing, y'all. I'll just add to that. I grew up with my father being Presbyterian and my mother being like going to a non-denominational Christian Bible-based, basically not Unitarian, but like a unity church. And my preacher was a 7-foot-tall Black woman. You know, we were making up songs and changing lyrics and meditating and lighting candles and all of that. And then on the other hand, my dad was Presbyterian, so I'd also go to the Presbyterian church, which might as well have been Catholic for all I knew. But the balance of the two gave me the ability to code switch when I needed to, pass when I needed to. But the opening that the non-denominational church gave me, it was like giving me permission to settle into myself, explore how I really and truly felt about myself and the world, and not feel shame, even though the world was trying to make me feel shame. Like, how do you navigate the intersections of gender and race and class and sexuality, all of those? Like, how do you navigate that, and how do you make sense of it within your own identity?
It's not easy. And I think about this a lot as, like, I know for a fact that I'm Black, and I know for the fact that I'm lesbian. And even the word lesbian has been, like, an evolving term for me because I am transmasculine, right? And I see myself as occupying all of the gender expressions out there. And that's continued as I've had like different gender affirmation surgeries and, you know, access to hormones. And also, I think I'm of a generation that now uses different terms to consider themselves as queer, right? And I mean, even the word queer might be a little bit controversial in this room, but also like being non-binary, and what does it mean to be non-binary and Black and working class versus what does it mean to be non-binary and treated almost as if it's a theoretical thing, right? Like gender is something you could just play with and not necessarily something that is experienced and that impacts every interaction that you have. And so it's been a bit of like evolution. I mean, that's really what I can call it. Also recognizing that I'm in my 20s and it will continue to evolve. But I think really understanding myself as a Black lesbian has been extremely grounding as I've traversed, around these like gender binaries, and even, coming from a Black single mother household where, like, don't get me wrong, I didn't want for anything. I had what I needed, but also, like, I understood wealth was far from what I had. Yes. Far from what I had. To now being in a place where, like, I'm stable, and I come from now a different education background, and I am a homeowner in a 2-income household with a dog, and that's a totally different life, right? And so I see that, like, these things are changing for me. But yeah, there's something about being Black lesbian that really has been grounding, and to be surrounded by other Black lesbians who may not necessarily even use the term lesbian, but ultimately it's someone who has experienced a Black girlhood and now is having to, like, endure this society that can be really, really challenging for those of us with these identities.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? I think this is my first time ever hearing somebody identify as transmasculine and lesbian. How do you define lesbian?
Yeah. As we were talking before about, like, spirituality and religion, I was thinking a lot because my wife and I have a little bit of debate. She's the one who made me question whether or not I'm really a Christian. And I think it's one of those things where I just, like, took for granted. I'm like, I was raised up Christian. I believe that there is ultimately a God. What more is there to it? But I don't follow the Bible, and I don't agree with my mother's Christian views. So then when I think about what it means to be spiritually grounded and what it means to be lesbian, I think of it as a spiritual force between people who may identify as women, may identify as female, may identify as feminine, right? I think all of these are not necessarily synonymous terms, but I find that I relate to other people who've had ultimately a girlhood, right? A Black girlhood. I also was thinking a lot about, and I also have a debate of how her name is actually pronounced, the author of Jambalaya. Is it Louisa Tish? Yes. Louisa Tish. When I read Jambalaya, and I read about her theorizing, right, around a divinity between the wisdom that's shared and between mother and daughter, between women, between generations of a particular gender, that was also a aha, like, this is what lesbianism has offered me in a way that allows me to separate myself from patriarchal violence, in a way that allows me to practice a womanist praxis, right, a womanist life, and that centers the way that women's gifts to the world. I know I'm distracted a little bit.
Take your time.
No, you're totally fine.
It's something that I theorize a lot about, right? And so let me just say that piece. But I also think that because gender is something that I don't take for granted, gender is something that I'm constantly experimenting with, it feels good to come back to the fact that as someone who's had a girlhood, who has female anatomy, who loves other people with female anatomy and other people who've had a girlhood, that there's a bonding that we have that I don't see in other sexualities or other races.
Thank you for that, Ash. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So how do other folks, yes, please.
I'm just
please.
jumping up and down over here.
Yes,
I mean,
good.
the only thing that's constant is change.
Yes.
And I found that out. The more I think I know, the more I realize how little I know as I go along. But I can say that your inner feelings in here changes. Like I said, I remember back when I was young and I was that girl watcher and it was a secret. And then it got to be why, with me, it's okay to appreciate and love the form of a woman. But I'm married. I have 6 children. 4 of them were boys. I love boys. I love masculinity. I love the masculine-looking woman. But I love the female form. So all of this, when you say there's change inside of me, I know I look feminine. There's a lot of masculine going on. And I feel it, and sometimes that masculine takes it. Like I said, I want to do a garden. I can't dig in the ground anymore because I'm 81. But that masculine part of me, I want to build things with my hands. Because I used to watch my father do that. Yeah. But then again, and my father was kind of like, he would cook, he would sew, he would do hair, and he would make things and fix things, and he was like, do all of these things. And my mother was sort of calm and passive. So in me, I have that calm and passive. Then everybody thinks that I look like I'm passive, and then they say you're passive aggressive because I'm very bold. And I have a twin, and I had someone say, I don't want to meet your twin if you think you're the calm one, because, well, I thought I was, So all of this stuff is going on in us at all the time. Everything changes. You don't say, I'm a lesbian, I'm a this, I'm a that. I have a granddaughter, was born a female in a female body that I know should have been born in a male body. And I watched her from the time she was born do things that boys do, pick things that boys picked. We go to get a Halloween costume, pass the princesses' dresses, and go over to Darth Vader. And now she's changing and actually taking hormones and, beautiful, gorgeous, gorgeous person. And so things change in all of us. Nothing stays the same, and it's just what you allow. When you have the freedom, as Archbishop said, God loves you, God loves all of us, and God's love is for everyone. And you can be who you are. That power that he gave us to say, I am who I am. You accept me or reject me. I feel how I feel. You like it or don't like it. That's on you. And I say, like my grandkids, some of them at times would not want to be around me because they said I was too strict. I've always been very kind of like, you're going to do what I say, I no back talk. And they would say, you're strict, And I would say, well, you have to understand that we have to have the permission to be who we are, to say what we want to say. And there have to be a space for that. And if you don't set that for yourself. So if you meet me and you don't like me, I think you've missed a wonderful person. So that's my inside job. That's what Carl Bean did for me. That's what my inside job, all the doubts and fears that I'm less than. I'm not my experiences and what I didn't do. And Carl Bean said, look in that mirror and say, girl, and I look in the mirror now and I said, girl, you're wonderful. You look great.
Yes.
You're awesome.
Yes.
We're going to do this today.
Indeed.
Those kinds speak
Yes,
to
indeed.
myself. And I want that power for every person that I meet. And I don't just isolate myself to, see, that's one thing in the South, it's black and white. But where I come from in California, we're a mixture of everything. And we all need to empower women. I don't care who they are, what they look like, where they come from, or what they feel like. And that's what we do. And that's what I try to do. And I saw somewhere where it said, what is my legacy? I'm hoping that they say, I always tried to tell someone to be powerful. Let it come out. Don't be afraid to stand up and say no. The first time I learned how to say no was amazing because I didn't think I could. So, but this journey is awesome. Life is awesome, but it's awesome when you make it awesome and take those steps to be free. So today we just refuse to be anything but black, lesbian women, married, have the same thing everybody else has. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry. Anyway,
No, this is
I get
exactly what
excited
this
because,
space is
when
for.
I come and they say, do you have a testimony? Yes, I'm excited today. I'm excited
There
to
it
see
is.
what's going to happen
There it
today.
is.
Life is exciting, and it has to be that way. That's how you live it.
Yes,
And I inspire people to do that. I try to.
you just did. Anybody else want to answer that?
Part of that is what she just spoke to in her spiritual self, because I came through a spiritual space of freedom that says God don't make mistakes and he don't make junk. Well, the fact he don't make junk really validated me, since everyone says you're junk, you're like women. I am probably have the simplest and least complicated view of that question of anyone up here, because for me it's kind of a simple answer. It's not a struggle. My desire is to always be my authentic self. It doesn't have to look good to anybody else, but it has to be who I really, truly am, which I am. I am a mother of 4. I'm a grandmother of 8. I'm a great-grandmother of 5. I am privileged to be married to that woman we'll be together for 38 years.
Right on.
Wow,
You
beautiful.
know, I am privileged to have children, one of them right there. I'm privileged that she is the same gender-loving woman and married 20 years. That says that she and I gave some kind of example that they followed. I'm privileged for that. But at the end of the day, I'm very passionate about Black women. I'm very passionate about where we stand, sit, and sometimes lay.
Yeah.
I'm honored to be here. The biggest thing about intergenerational conversation is what I learned from you two. That helps me. You teach me because you have loads of knowledge. It's all before you on the internet, on the computer. Google will kill you. You have lots of knowledge. And I see my job as bringing wisdom so you know how to use the knowledge you've been given.
Ooh, that gave me chills, right?
That's my job.
Yes.
That's my job as an elder, is to learn from you. And as you teach me, because there's some things I'm going to ask you when this is over, because you're going to talk to me about that queer. But as you teach me, no, I'm being honest. I'm being honest.
talk
You said
about it
be
now,
honest.
though. Yeah.
You said be honest.
Yeah.
I'm open to learning. Because I'm going to be here a while. I'm 77, but I'm going to be here a long time. And in that, if I don't learn from you, I don't survive the ever-changing process. And you don't survive if we don't interact, if I don't give you knowledge to use everything, the wisdom, I have to give that to you so you use all that you have. My job is to raise you up.
Yes, yes.
Because as things change, as you said, things continue to change and they will continue to evolve. But an old lady once told me, I'm always going to be able to help you because I've been your age, you've never been mine.
Taking a page out of this book that you just opened, let's queer this conversation. Let's talk about the word queer. Let's talk about it. So, and this wasn't planned, obviously, but I know that there is a difference in generations in how some folks identify. So how many of us use the word queer sometimes? I know I do. Okay, so what do you mean when you use the word queer, Genesis?
I like you ask, what do you mean? Because I think you're going to get a different answer depending on who you ask. Queerness to me is a lens through which I see the world. It's a rejection of binary. It's a rejection of programming. It's an open-mindedness and an open-heartedness to not take things at face value, to not take people at face value, not to think that I have the ability to categorize and place. That would have been my answer to the last question around identity. We have to be very careful not to limit ourselves based on identity, because a lot of times identity is just someone else's perception of you. You are a spirit. This is a meat, but this is meat. We are a spirit. So if we're not careful, we'll allow other people's perception dictate how to compartmentalize us.
Right.
And the only function for that is like how to control us, right? So I feel like when I say queerness, it's how I see the world. It's how I could look at a straight, white, wealthy man and know that he's more than a straight, white, wealthy man. He is a complex human being, worthy of dignity, first and foremost, and that expands to everything and everybody. So, if I call myself queer, depending on the day, because sometimes it changes, the way that I love, the way that I express, the way that I move through the world is not gonna fit in anyone's binary or any compartmentalization of what you think of me, and that projects of how I view the world as well.
That was powerful. What do you hear when you hear the word queer?
Odd. And that may very well be generational. It is, I know it is generational. But coming up, to be called queer was offensive. It was an insult. And so I want to learn how that, yeah, thank you. I want to learn how that's not an insult. I want to learn how to fix that in my head, because when I hear it, it's negative. But when it's said, it's usually coming from a positive place. And I don't know how to bring them two together to make it work. Because
We love being
when you
odd.
say queer, look, don't do that. Don't do that. So, well, no, I'm trying to be honest here.
I
I'm
appreciate
I'm
that.
seeking
That's very
information,
real.
and
Right.
this is one of those
And-
times where you teach me.
And I would
That's
say
very
briefly,
real.
I love being odd. I think that's what I was saying with the lens of which I see the world. I love weird. I love odd, because whatever their version of normal is, I don't ascribe to it. I just don't, right? So when I say queer, or someone calls me a weirdo, I love it, because I don't want to be like everyone else, because I'm being myself, and if that's weird to you, then I don't want to be normal. That's how I
So
feel.
basically, the queer is, I'm not normal. I am individually, authentically
According
me.
to, yes, according to
That's what it means.
what
According to the
normalcy
norms,
is.
according
Okay.
to typical.
Well, there's no
all of that.
normals.
Right,
There's
exactly.
But there-
no normal.
Typical.
But there is.
But there is. I mean, it is a term of resistance. I mean, when I use it and when I was introduced to it, it was very much a political term, meaning I am queer. I am going to resist every type of white supremacist norm that has been set forward. I'm not going to raise your babies like you expect me to. I'm not going to marry and take care of your men like you expect me to. I'm not going to have the job you expect me to. I'm going to resist every chance that I get. Now, yes, it is a bit of individuality, but it is also a part of like world making. It is a sense of like what has been the norm and tradition of the past is no longer. We are rebuilding.
And surprise, surprise, there are some people who identify as queer who don't identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual. And the whole, going to your point about it being a political term, when I said, okay, we're going to queer this conversation, that also meant we're going to turn it up on its head. We're going to turn it around. We're going to transform it, do something that you're not expecting, do something different, and we're taking it back. We're taking that power back. I have a dear friend of mine who's almost 70, and she hates the pronoun they. And we didn't talk about pronouns yet, and I kind of want to get into that too. But she hates the pronoun they. He would rather you call him she or he, but not they, because they, when he hears it.
More than one.
And he's been very unmoving on the they them issue. It's either she or he. You can use them interchangeably, but don't call me they. On the other hand, I know a lot of people who identify as, when you talk about them when they're not in the room, or when you talk about them and you're referencing them, they want you to use they them pronouns and not she he pronouns, because they've expanded the way that they think about themselves. It's like, fuck the patriarchy. Can we say that? I'm sorry. I cursed, sorry. It's done now.
Too late. It's a little too late.
But we didn't talk about pronouns, and we've been talking about identity this whole time. I'm curious to know, how do you want people to refer to you when they're talking about you?
Woman.
She, her, hers, okay. Reverend Jen?
I'm good with she and her. That's fine with me, but I'm more than that. I can agree. I thank you so much. That's why I try to stay around young people. I learn so
I know,
much.
they teach
Like,
you.
yeah,
Give 'em a minute.
Yes.
I have two young ladies that live next door to me, and they're into anime. I mean, and when I see these two ladies, I go, what are they? One is 17, one is 13, and they're very, and I don't think it has anything to do, I don't know, with sex or not. I'm going to ask more questions, and I'm spending time with them to find out about this because
What
there's
is
so
that? I've
much
heard
more.
that, too.
There's so much
is it?
more that
I
we
love
don't,
anime as well.
but
Imagine
we have to
I'm
stay informed, we have to keep learning.
So, give,
Oh,
what is it?
anime is just like Japanese animation. Really deep in storytelling and,
And she dresses
narrative
weird.
and heroism, hero
Weird.
arc. Yeah,
She has
it's
pink hair
different
and she dresses with all
cartoons,
this
but-
different little stuff on, and when I look at her, I go, "Wow, what is this? What?" I love her. I love her. That we can express. We're free. We couldn't. We had to wear our skirts down here and certain things, and she can be who she feels like. And if she wants to be like a flower today, she can be like a flower. That's wonderful.
I like it.
I
'Cause
like it.
Now that's kind of freeing because, generations, let's go.
Yes.
We didn't get to do none of that. I feel like we got cheated.
I agree. I feel, even though I'm kind of midway between everybody, I also feel like we got cheated a little bit. And I can remember going back to school and being the oldest person in my grad school class the first time I heard people busting up pronouns. And I was like, wait a minute. We've got she's and we've got he's. And it took me a long time to really understand what was happening. And when I understood what was happening, I was like, oh shit, I wish I could have been like that when I was like, oh my gosh, how different would my upbringing have been?
Yes.
How different would my perception of myself have been in my teens and 20s and 30s and 40s if I had been that liberated?
But because of y'all, it allowed more space for us and our generation, y'all being brave in what you all are identifying as Black lesbian at the time that you were, that cracks open more space. Each generation cracks open more space, and we see that here. But I really want Ash to speak more to the pronoun situation.
Yeah, I mean, just echoing what Genesis said, I'll stay on topic, but eventually we'll diverge into just what does it mean to have elders as LGBTQ? I'm going to start saying that acronym since queer is a controversial
Feel free to
term.
use the terminology you want to use.
Don't stop saying
Okay,
it. I
okay.
just want to learn about it. Don't
Okay.
stop saying it.
Okay.
Baby, don't change nothing for somebody old as mommy does, okay?
Okay.
Don't change.
On the pronoun conversation, when I entered college, which was 2014, that's how we introduced ourselves. We said our name, we said what year we were, and what our pronouns were. We were very versed, and I say that knowing that there were still some folks who had different cultural backgrounds, so we still had to define what that meant. But we were already in the practice of saying your pronouns when you introduce yourself. And for me, I felt very similar to your friend for a long time. When people said they, it felt so impersonal. It felt like you're just, when you describe, oh, whose phone is this? Someone left their phone here, right? It feels anonymous. It feels faceless. And so that's why I didn't like it. However, as I continued to transition and people are like, well, I don't know what you are, and to be safe, to not be politically incorrect, I'm gonna just say they when describing me. And so I just accepted it. I was like, that's how people see me, that's how people see me. But similarly, as I've gone through my gender journey, I have started to resist having to define myself every single time I walk into a space. One, because it's exhausting to have to gender yourself every single time you walk into a space. But two, because I realize that sometimes people are just going to see me how they see me, and that's not necessarily a personal thing on my part. It is so culturally embedded that if you look at me, and I noticed this when I moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, because suddenly all these white folks were calling me she, right? And that was hard for me. I was like, I'm more than just she. Don't you see me as a handsome man? And then I moved back here to Atlanta, and then I got called everything. But I realized that was just because, well, in Knoxville, Tennessee, they were used to seeing masculine women all the time. I mean, there were farmers all around, and potentially also these white folks were used to seeing Black women as inherently more masculine. So when they saw a masculine person, they were just like, oh, you're just a Black woman. When I moved to Atlanta, well, there's gay boys everywhere. So they say, oh, you're just a gay boy. You're a he. And I'm like, yeah.
And is that BOI?
Ooh.
What's BOI?
Well, I take BOI as like a much more butch, a much more like, masculine female,
Okay.
rather than BOY, which is, I think it's a little bit of both. And I still very much identify as a BOI boy. But I think, as like the gender conversation has continued to evolve, and I think we see a lot more transgender and gender expansive people. It's become much more of a norm to ask for pronouns, to see pronouns as inherently linked to someone's identity. And I'm not against that, because knowing myself when I was especially younger and trying to understand, well, who am I? That was one of the very first things when exploring new gender expressions, was to start using different pronouns. And so it's important. And yes, definitely use the pronouns people want you to use. And as I gotten exhausted by constantly having to gender myself, I recognized that that's just only one tiny little piece of the story. And you told me to silence my phone, and there's my mom giving me a call.
I saw you put it on airplane mode, though.
I know.
I did what I was supposed to
If
do.
she's your emergency contact.
That's
She
what
is.
it is.
She is
That's
my
what it
emergency
is.
contact.
We'll let it slide.
But anywho, pronouns can be very, very important, and it's exciting that I think we are having a much more intergenerational conversations about it. But also, I think we can also harp on it a little too much, and recognize that sometimes people will simply see you as they see you, not because of the way you walk through the world, but because of their own cultural background.
Yes.
And sometimes you can't control that.
Right. So what are your pronouns?
I truly do not care.
Really?
Any and all pronouns are absolutely fine with me. I say anything said with respect.
And yours?
She, hers, but also I get misgendered all the time. It doesn't bother me as long as it's respectful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. And yours?
She and her.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. We've been kind of like skirting around this topic a little bit while we've been here together, and it's the topic of safety. And when we broach the topic of identity, gender, kind of the undertone of that is, how safe do you feel in your gender expression, in your body? And this is really related to intersectionality too, being a woman or being transmasculine. How safe do you feel in public? How safe do you feel when you step out of your door to enter society? How safe do you feel?
I have this poem called Assess the Exits, and
That already gave me chills, and you haven't even started.
because I feel like and it depends on how well your privilege strikes you. There are some of us who will walk into a room and assess where the exits are,
Every time.
right? And that could be if I'm in a room full of my people, full of Black men or Black folks who might not be queer. I still have to assess the exits. If I am a room full of white folks, I have to assess the exits. Unless I'm in a room full of like us, it's the only time I'm not wondering if something pops off, where's the quickest way to go? And then if I'm with my partner, if I enter a room and how we are perceived, that that flight or fight mode is something that's in the back of my mind, because I'm still going to be present, I'm still going to be joyful, I'm still ready to be open and listen to people and share space with people. But in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, well, something could pop off, and where is the nearest exit? That's how I live my life, and it is exhausting, but it's the reality of survival.
That's right.
Based on how other people perceive us.
And if you add on to that we're in the Deep South, you know, people forget it's Atlanta, but it's also Georgia. That makes it even more. My wife moved here from New York by way of Chicago, and it hit her like a ton of bricks. She's masculine identified as well. And she was like, my experience when I step out of our door versus your experience when I step out, very, very different.
Absolutely. But same with the flip. As a more feminine presenting person, you can also be in more danger than someone who is more masculinely presented. So it's like, it just depends on how you're looking at it.
Totally. Absolutely. What about our wonderful, beautiful elders?
False evidence appearing real.
Tell us more.
Again, time. Although it was ugly, again, freedom. You stand up with your full chest. I am who I am. You have something, bring it. You know, not stupid.
I was gonna say, that sounds like a dare.
Well, no,
like a dare.
It's not a dare, but it's saying, bring it. Bring it. You know, I'm not here for you to love me. You don't even know me. I don't care if you don't like me. What you will not do is this. Now, if you don't do this, AT&T, reach out and touch. If you don't reach out and touch me, what you say has no bearing because I know better. What you call me, I know what I answer to. So I can't give that room because of who I am. I can't allow room for your stuff to become my stuff. Now, physically, we at the bring it point. Now, like the scenario that you gave, though, we at the exit point because there's a whole room full of people I don't know, and if they decide I'm the target for that day and I'm not armed, then I need to know where the exits are and remove myself. But one of the things I have learned about tapping your spiritual self, your energy self, when you walk into a room, you know what's there. Because spirit gonna let you know what's in the room, who is coming from, and where it is. If you walk in open, and if you walk in authentic, in your power. Now, if you walk in your nerves, everybody in that room gonna feel that energy. They're gonna pick that up, and they're gonna wanna deal with you. If you walk in your full chest, they're gonna respect you because they don't know what they're gonna get from you.
That's right.
Have you always been this confident and assured about your physical safety? Like, how did you get
The physical
to
safety.
this point? I mean, seriously, I'm like, damn, I want to always feel like
I
that.
stay with the strap.
No, but I'll tell you, we have a minute, I'll tell you a little story.
Yes.
When I was really young, and it was bullying back in those days wasn't what it is now. Bullying in those days meant you have a good fight, it's over, pound it, high five, we done. When I was younger, there was a little girl that used to chase me home. And to get from school, everybody had to pass my house. And every day I'd be running. So this particular day, my mom met me at the door. She was standing in the door like this with her arms folded. And she said, you're not running anymore. You're going back out the door. And I'm not wanting to go back out this door because I'm scared. My mom said, well, you got choices, baby. You got choices. You got her, and you got a chance.
That's it.
And you got me.
No chance.
No chance. What you want to do?
That's old school.
What you want to do? I took my butt back out that door, and
That's
if I
right.
tell you I wore that little heifer out, okay? What I learned from that was, you don't bring trouble to the table, but you always got to be prepared to handle it.
Amen.
That needs to be a shirt.
It needs
You
to be
know,
a shirt.
my mother said that you fear nothing, and false evidence appearing real
Appearing
came from
real.
Carl
Carl
Bean.
Bean. Yes.
And you have to hold your own. You have to. And at this point in my life, I kind of, maybe it was a dare. But I feel that you don't pay my bills, you don't feed me, and I really don't advise you to try to whoop me. So what do we got here?
Can I ask a question that you all don't have to answer, but now I'm really curious? Do you arm yourselves?
Sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah?
absolutely.
Sometimes. Depends on where I'm going.
My whistle.
Okay, you have a
I
whistle.
pass them out to people.
In Mississippi, where I'm from, is I think in Deep South in general, it's a gun culture, and I don't think that's good. I will say that. I don't think it's good, but I had my first gun at age 14. I also come from a military family, understanding training, understanding the danger of this. You never pull this thing out unless you intend to kill somebody.
That's right.
So I was trained at a really young age, and I also come from, I told you about my grandfather, Reverend Clyde Briggs. He was harassed, shot into my father's childhood home because they suspected that he, along with Deacons of Defense out in New Orleans, were arming Black citizens against the White Citizens Council, against the KKK. So when I say gun culture, I don't just mean through the lens of the white gun culture, but making like no one else is going to protect you, so you protect yourself, and we arm ourselves as a community. So, and I get a lot of pushback from my circle of my more liberal friends when they, they're no guns, no guns, no guns, but for a lot of us, that's not the reality. And I would love for us to get to a point in our culture, in our society, where no one has guns, including cops.
Right.
Or get to a point where that's not even needed,
Right.
but that's just
Right.
not the reality. I'm not like pro-gun, don't take away our guns. It's not like that. I would love it if we didn't have them, but, my father made sure as a young girl that I was armed.
Thank you. Do you arm yourself?
I won't answer that on the record,
Okay.
but similarly, if someone tries it, they will
They'll find
face
out.
consequences. Yes.
Mess around and find out.
Oh, y'all are the best.
Do
So
tell.
I want to I want to switch gears a little bit here and talk about policy. So all of us were around. Ash, I don't remember. You told us how old you were when the Supreme Court struck down DOMA.
I was like a junior in college.
Okay, okay. So when gay marriage became legal, we know that the first couple to marry was a Black lesbian couple here in Georgia, actually, right? How did that impact your life when you realized that legally you could marry a woman? Oh, yes, please.
Do tell.
The chuckle, do tell.
Story behind that chuckle.
I'm going to keep that for closing comments.
Okay.
Mic drop.
We'll take it, right. We'll
Mic
take
drop.
it.
Well, being in ministry, I saw how important the legal aspects of our relationship is to people. I've seen people turned away from celebration of life. I've seen them turned away from hospital visitation. I've seen them not invited into the family. And I've seen people that lived with someone for years have to actually struggle and die alone because their family came in and took over legally and denied them access. So it's legally. So it's very important. I know in our lives, we were together a long time before we decided to legally get married. But because of property issues, and I have children, she has a child, it's important to make sure that the law works for us. So it's very important. And it's very important that I'm seeking some more information now with estate planning and those kind of things, afterlife, what's going to happen with pension and all that. So it's very important, the policy.
Yeah. What did you all do before to consummate your marriage or make it?
We had we went to Las Vegas, and the little chapel of the, oh, she's gone. She's got to go to work. The little chapel of something in Las Vegas had the ceremony, commitment ceremony, and I think we were supposed to file papers somewhere or something, which we didn't, because like who was it that said they were so in love? We were so in love. We were so in love that, I mean, life every day. I can't believe that we've been together 31 years. It seems like yesterday. We just were so in love that we just, it was, it hadn't all been easy, because like I said, we had come in with families. I had a large family. And but the two things we agreed on was ministry, and that's what kept us together so long. Ministry.
Beautiful. We gonna save yours. Either of you?
I have some pretty, I don't know, maybe unpopular opinions around marriage.
Do tell.
First off, I want to honor the ancestors who fought so that we could get married and enjoy those benefits and enjoy that expression. I think it is extremely important. I think for me personally, I wasn't ever super interested in marriage. I think in some ways, marriage is almost an antiquated tool for survival. We partner up because we need to survive together. And I think as women and people begin to expand their opportunities financially and all of these things, the need for marriage has kind of dissipated outside of the legal terms. But it's only under a specific structure that legality even functions, right? I think it goes back to like the queer lens.
That's right.
Nothing to do with God.
Of looking at things, right? Not being said, maybe just recently I've started coming around to the idea of marriage as ceremonial and spiritual, but like a spiritual partnership, and adding the legality of the benefits, right? And I feel blessed that I can do that if I so choose. But yeah, I still have a lot of complex thoughts around marriage.
That's so real. I'm so glad you're here. This is so great.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with a very traditional view. And as queer as I like to celebrate myself as, I knew should I fall in love, I'm marrying them. And I had, and still do have, and I somewhat fight back against it, is like, I want to parent someday. And I want to parent with a co-parent who I am so enthusiastic about co-parent with. And to me, that was a spouse. And that is still the case. And so when I met my wife at a time that like this was right before the pandemic hit, and then the pandemic hit, and then both of our fathers passed away, and we both got sick, and there was just a lot of life disruptions, and she was my rock throughout that. Along with just being, I mean, I didn't have a checklist, but had I had a checklist, she was marking off every single box. And it just made sense. I was like, why would I not invest in this woman? Why would I not feed into this relationship that has allowed us to grow? And then have all the legal protections that go with it. And so I mean, like I said, I was a junior in college, and so legal marriage for us was always on the table. And for the moment that, as the Supreme Court shifted and as laws in Georgia recently have started to limit our liberties, especially as queer folks, as trans folks, I have gotten a little nervous about what that looks like. And so to me, it also became a bit of an urgency thing. It's just like, I already know this is the woman. I could let time pass, but also I followed the lesbian cliche, which is that I U-hauled so quickly. I mean, within 6 months, I had proposed. Now, granted, we still waited 2 more years before we actually married, but
That's so great.
That's beautiful.
all that to say, it felt like this is urgent, right? And I don't want to miss the opportunity. And so I jumped on it, and I am still happy with that decision. And the wedding itself was really small and really intimate. And to me, it was a moment of like, okay, I'm inviting all the people who's going to hold us accountable as partners to one another to ensure we continue to fruitfully pour into this relationship. And to state our, not only vows to one another, but like, what are our principles as Black lesbians in this world? And how are the folks that are present at our wedding going to hold us accountable to that? So that's how we've treated it. And that's also poured into like, us choosing the last name Kambahi, and really like building the life that we wanted to do. I mean, the marriage was the exercise to do that.
What does Kambahi mean?
Yeah, I mean, we chose Kambahi because we both had last names that didn't feel super tied to us, and we felt that our lineage, more than anything else, was tied to a political Black lesbian lineage. So the Kambahi River Collective was formed in 1974 by a group of mostly Black lesbians. Other women of color were also a part of that collective, and wrote what became the definitive Black lesbian statement, which is the Kambahi River Collective Statement. That collective, however, was then named after the Kambahi River Raid, which happened in the late 1800s during the Civil War in South Carolina. And that was a raid, one of the largest slave rebellions that occurred in U.S. history, led by Harriet Tubman. And so that lineage felt more significant than any bloodline.
I see.
And that's why we chose it.
I see why.
And then I think anecdotally, we credit Come By Here with Come By He. Come by He, my Lord, come by He. Oh, yeah.
That's a word.
When my wife and I were dating, we lived in several places together, but one of those places was Minneapolis. And this was in the early 2000s. She had gotten sick and had to go to the hospital, and I went to meet her. And of course, they wouldn't let me back because I wasn't a relative. And it was after that experience that we were like, oh, well, we need to do something. And in Minneapolis at the time, we could at least be domestic partners. So we filed for domestic partnership, which would let us at least be with each other in a medical setting. And then we broke up, we got back together, whatever. And then, so when we decided to get back together again, we knew that this was lifetime. And we knew that now, as opposed to, 15 years before, we could actually get married. And we decided to get married. And because we had been together for so long and had been through so much together, we didn't want to take it too seriously. We went to the Justice of the Peace, but one thing we did know is we didn't want to get married in the South. Because if something went down, it was bound to happen in the South. So we got married in Brooklyn and went to the Justice of the Peace and just cracked up, laughing and giggling and enjoying each other the whole entire time. It was the best. We didn't want to take it too seriously. We were already nervous as hell. But yes, that I've been very conflicted about marriage my whole life. I don't recall being a kid saying, oh, I want to get married and I want to have kids. I never wanted that. It took a long time for me to get to a place where I was like, yeah, I think I want that now. I think I want that now.
And when we talk about marriage, is everyone speaking about monogamy?
No, good question.
Since we're talking about queerness.
So yes, here.
No.
No. So you all have a...
We are ethically non-monogamous.
Oh, that is very interesting. It's
Yes.
different than being poly.
So they say. I don't really know what the differences are. But what I do know is that, we recognize that lusts and affection and crushes sometimes is the life force that keeps us moving forward. And it feels wrong to deprive ourselves of that. So much of that is simply an honesty and an open line of communication of like, I just saw this really cute person.
The elders over here
I
are
know,
like,
I know.
what?
And when I
wait
talk
to hear
That's
this
blowing their mind.
That's why I asked. Look, this is why.
Fall out this
This is
chair.
why I asked, because I already knew there was something here. Come on.
You messy.
I'm
Love
messy.
it.
I'm a low-key messy person. Quiet but messy.
This is going to take another meeting.
I I see that.
Every time I
might
talk,
be a part two.
every time I talk to elders about this, they have a moral, a life story to tell me about this, to warn me against my ethical non-monogamy, which I recognize is something that is a conversation ongoing. You know, there's no permanency in this, but ultimately, what it means is an open line of communication of like, I'm a sexual being. I find attraction with other people, and I am going to act on that with full acknowledgement and consent of all parties, which includes me as their partner or her as my partner. Yeah.
You better than me. I'm jealous as hell.
Oh, God, I can't.
I'm
I
jealous.
can't.
I tried it once.
It's not easy.
It's not.
It's
only
not
for that
easy.
reason that I can't.
It's not. Maybe if I was in a marriage and it was like a sure, like we good, maybe. But yeah, I've tried and I'm just too jealous.
It's not easy.
That's it. Yeah. Talk to us. What are you thinking about this?
From another aspect of that, being a minister in my training, one of the questions we were asked, if 3 people come in for counseling, because of your belief system that it's got to be 2, are you going to be able to counsel these 3 and talk to them and be fair to them? And I had to really get a grip on that because I'm I am like, what do I say? I don't share. I don't share.
Yeah.
So then I had to think about that, but then we have to think about how other people evolve and how other people think. And I agree with you say. We are people that you could be aroused on something, but I just was taught not to act on it. You know, but then again, you have to realize there's emotional and then there's physical. So there's a lot of different things going on, but I can't let my judgment condemn someone else. And that's this whole thing about our being who we are, seeing a gay son, seeing a daughter that's, learning how to acceptance. Because they accept me, then I accept them. And so that's how we live our life now.
I don't get to tell, just because I'm old, don't mean I get to tell you what is right or wrong for your life. I don't get to do that.
Yeah.
Not, and in the next breath say I care about you. Because then it turns to, I care about what I would like you to be rather than who you are and your authentic self. So I don't get to do that. I do get to appreciate, and I do get to ask, do you get in trouble sometimes?
Yes.
You do?
Oh, yes.
I figured.
And she does too.
See?
Yeah.
But if it works, the key is if it works for you and your partner, if it works, then we don't get to say nothing. We don't get to say nothing but lift you up and hold both of y'all accountable. You said you like this, I don't want to hear nothing. Nothing. This is what you said, and I'm honoring that. I get to honor you. That's all I get to do. I don't get to get in your business like that.
That's right.
Okay, now you have to tell us your mic drop story.
Come on with it.
Do tell.
Oh, it was the same as yours. It was about getting married. We had 5 years after we were together, we had a commitment ceremony. It was awesome. For me, that's when I got married. It was with close friends. It was in the mountains. The ancestors came.
Come on.
It did everything it was supposed to do for me and hopefully for her. I must say for her because she said some awesome things to me that day. Then the legalization came. And when the legalization came, we were like, you think we ought to do this? And then somewhere in there was a deadline or something. They were thinking of by this day in California, well, I think it was nationally, but by this day, California may recall or do whatever. Something came up and they were going to try to overturn. There was a thing to overturn. And so we're like, well, we already had domestic partnerships. So we're like, well, maybe we probably kind of might want to do this because the legalities. We own a home. We had things together. And so we get on the phone and we call my friend Terry Evans, you know him. We called Terry and said, Terry, can you meet us at the courthouse real quick? And he's like, Minister Terry, what are we doing? I was just meet me at the courthouse, we're finna get married. And he's like, just like that. I'm like, we've been together for over 30 years. So he comes, and we call Carol, and we go, can you come from your office, which is next door to the courthouse? And we go in, we get the little license, and we come back out, and no getting dressed up, no getting cute, no makeup, no nothing.
We had on jeans.
Yeah, yes. Jeans, a t-shirt, we're out there. So we go out to the steps, and Terry, he does the do you, yes I do, will you, yeah I will. You know, and then we sign it, he goes back in, and we go, okay, we good. And we went back home and went to bed.
See? Yep.
And that was the end of that.
Yep.
Because it didn't have, I think maybe kind of like you were saying, marriage for us happened long before it was legal.
Absolutely.
When it became legal, it was just something to do for the legality parts of it. But our belief in what marriage is and what it does, well, it's work for starters. But it's good work.
Yeah.
It's the kind of work that makes you still get that ache in your belly. And you coming up on 40 years, but your belly still tightens up
Yes,
when
it
you
does.
look at it.
Yes, it does.
You know, or you get to say, excuse me, because you had a wee bit of flatulence that may be odoriferous. And it's a person that understands and loves you anyway.
Anyway.
That's what marriage is.
That's what it is.
So much.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Knowing
Thank you
someone
for
that can
that.
hold your hand. I've lost 3 sons. And knowing you have someone with you through this whole thing that can be there for you and hold your hand through the best times and the worst times.
Yes.
That's what marriage means. It has nothing to do with that piece of paper. It has nothing to do with what God said, that the Bible said, that people said,
Yeah,
that's
none of that.
misinterpreted.
None of
It's just that loving commitment that we had before we signed that piece of paper
Yeah.
that we have to this day.
And you get to be that, you know, the privilege. You get to be that. You have the privilege of being that for somebody else.
New every day.
The gift,
That's so
you know,
true.
the gift of
Yeah.
being that for someone else.
And she's beautiful every day.
Yes.
With teeth, without teeth, with hair, without hair.
Without hair.
With, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You know.
Morning bread.
Yes.
Still all right.
That's
Still
that's
all
it. That's it.
Right. So, staying in this energy here, as we think about, you know how they talk about 7 generations behind us and 7 generations ahead of us. When we think about our descendants after we are long gone from this earthly plane, what do we imagine their world to look like? In our best imagination, what do we want for them? What do we want our world to look like? Can we take a second and just kind of shape and story that worldview?
I want them to understand their power. Everything that they need is already in here. And their connection to everything. I want them to understand their acceptance of themselves. I want that to be something that going forward, you have grandchildren, great-grand, I have great-great-grand.
Wow.
Yes, girl.
So I just want them to be free. I want the life from my little transgendered grandbaby to be better
Yeah.
than what, have to struggle like. And so I just want peace. I want them to have peace. And I want them to acknowledge everyone, not just pick certain people to acknowledge we're all connected, every one of us. Like you said, that white man, that, we're taught that something wrong. My father was like your father, militant. But to understand that we're all people, we're all creation, we're all, and to connect in the spirit. That's what I'd like for them to do.
I would like them to not have to check exits. No matter how their life evolves. I like them to not have to check exit, not have to worry about stepping into a room if they're queer, not necessarily gay, but But if they're, did I use it right? I got this. I would like them to be able to move in freedom, you know. A Buddhist monk told me one time that how necessary everybody is. And I would like for them to know that the world isn't the same without them in it.
Yes.
You know, that the world is kind of like, it's like a cup of coffee. You can't have a cup of coffee with just coffee. You can't have it without the cup. You can't have it without the water. And depending on how you like it, it's still coffee.
That's your coffee.
I want them to know that they're necessary. Like the coffee or like the grains of sand. Every grain of sand on that beach is important. It is important. And when you move some of that sand, you no longer have the beach. I want them to know that. And if they know that, they'll walk in their power, they'll walk in their strength. And I want the world to receive them in their strength and the people around them to be if they're walking in their strength and their love, and my children, grandchildren, great-grands are walking in theirs, we got harmony. So what I'd like to see is harmony. 6-part harmony.
6-part harmony.
6-part.
Yeah.
Come on. Liberated, free, interdependent. Just, I feel like these are all themes that you all have already shared, but like truly, I imagine that they have everything they need, that everybody has everything they need. Materially too, right?
It manifests because
Right, because it's in here, right?
Yes, because
So
it's in
whatever's
here.
in here will manifest
Manifest.
exactly.
Absolutely. We're
That's
complete.
right. That part, yes. Everything they need, inside and out, that they feel like they are interdependent, that love is a verb, that, this is gonna sound so trite, but that they're growing their own food. Like, that they're teaching one another, that there's lifelong learning, that we're not reliant on institutions, or that they're not reliant on institutions. I want us to not be reliant on institutions too, but long arc.
Building upon that, building upon all of it, the long arc. You said 7 generations down. Okay, we're already in the process of the decline of the American empire. We're already in the process of decline of capitalism. So I'm trying to envision what that world would be like. And I would love to contribute to a world where our descendants, poverty is not a constraint anymore, because I think it is very difficult, even if we tell someone how powerful and beautiful and dignified they are. Poverty is used as a mechanism to steal dignity or try to steal dignity. So when you talk on the material aspect, this is what I see as well. Have everything they need. They don't have to work tirelessly 9 to 5 every single day. Like that structure would be eradicated through our work, not just, I'm imagining this, like, no, we will help build something more sustainable for us. And I believe that I would love to see a world where the industry of division isn't working tirelessly to keep us divided and keep us in a state of dehumanizing each other, that humans have transcended at this point to understand our oneness, not our separate, you here. No, that we are one with earth, one with each other, one with everybody. The illusion of race, different races, will have been eradicated by then. We have deprogrammed by this time. And so our descendants are not operating even from a space of them being separate from another human in any way, because those division modes, those institutions that have upheld that division have now been eradicated thanks to us and thanks to our groundwork. And that's where I feel freedom and liberation can truly be. and we're eating from the land, and we're taking care of the land. Not exploiting, not just exploit each other, exploit the land, like that is a capitalist framework. And we see that that's not sustainable. It's already on the down. You know, we are riding that roller coaster down. So what's at the end of it, you know, I hope is what we're all dreaming about.
I mean, I think first and foremost, I want them to know how loved and desired they've been all the way from now. I think everyone deserves to know that they were brought into this world because they were wanted. And I think also, yeah, to be able to be in right relationship with the land, which means being able to eat off the land, but also nurture and pour in and know that this land is your birthright. You belong here. Should strife happen, you do not have to run because of survival. This is your land. You have a claim to it. I think I also want my great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren to be able to make art constantly and to recognize that that is part of our life force. You cannot live without producing art. And with that, I want them to constantly be singing and sing with all the other creatures that sing with us. I want them to continue to explore and innovate, but without necessarily a profit mindset or an exploitative mindset, but recognizing that, like, we still have a lot more evolving to do. I mean, Octavia Butler said okay, come on. It's a song that I sang.
Take your time.
To take root amongst the stars. That's where we're trying to go. We're trying to and we've already gotten some form of technology, but what does it look like for us to have that technology? To be able to traverse this earth as we know it, but also the stratosphere. Yeah, and I want us to really be able to, like, lean into pleasure and to know what pleasure feels like and not feel guilty or shamed about it.
What are our joy practices? What's filling us up these days?
What do you mean by that, joy practices?
What do you mean?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
We can go back and forth all day. What do you mean?
I'm trying to remember
what
those
brings us
practices
joy?
now, so I need to know which direction should my memory go when we're talking joy practices and how often do they happen?
There's
What are
no
you talking
limit.
about?
Yeah, what are you talking
There's
about?
no limit. Like,
Meals,
really and
food,
truly,
what?
whatever brings you joy. Whatever brings you joy.
I can start if you want to think about it.
Yeah, do
Okay.
that.
First and foremost, before I'm anything, painting, recording music, writing music, this is like the height of my human expression when I am in that zone. And it just informs such an energy and warmth and fire inside of me that just starts. All the chakras. Wonder and awe teaches me so much to just be around them. So that's where I find a lot of my joy in seeing the newness of the world. Because sometimes I feel like I know too much and I've seen too much, even at 37, of just like, I don't ever want to feel jaded. I always want to have my inner child being fed and nourished and wonder. So I want to thank you all for this talk and like being in space today, because that fuels my wonder to learn about new people and hear your stories and share stories. So the state of wonder, I think, is what is most pleasurable for me.
It's springtime and the flowers are blooming, and boy, oh boy, does that give me so much joy. I bought a house with already a really mature landscape, and the tulips are blooming, the camellias are still there, the daffodils are all frilly and amazing, and I can see the azaleas starting to spurt. That gives me so much joy.
And we see it all over.
Yes, yes, yes. And then to like be in the dirt and manipulate the earth so that we can grow some food and to allow more things. I mean, that gives me so much joy. To be able to play music, ukulele with Angela, with other folks. I mean, that is, yeah, that's a great, great joy. And to be able to eat with each other and just like pour so much heart into a meal and nourish each other's bodies and spirits through good conversation. Don't look at me like that.
Actually, I'm not going to say sex. So there. What I am going to say, though, is I get joy from educating. Because I believe that when I am able to educate, I affect change. And I affect Black change. And I have a strong belief that it won't be necessary to use that particular adjective at some point down the line. That would be in the future, but right now and today, I get joy in Black education, in educating about where we are, how we move, how we affect change, empowering. I get joy from that because that means that there is change, then there is future. If there is no change, future is dim. So for me, I feel good if I know that I have given something that somebody can hold on to and it's gonna make a change. Not necessarily doing the same thing I do, because trust me, you get in trouble. But if I give you a little bit of anything that comes to mind as you navigate through life, that comes to you, that is positive and brings you to a positive space, I get joy from that.
I get joy in those three things. Along with that comes holding babies, my crafting, and sex. And I won't say which is what order, because it changes. That just about adds it up.
Beautiful.
I love it so much. You brought up essentially, well, you brought up education, but is it time already? Oh, 10, thank you, okay. You brought up education, and it made me think about mentorship. How much mentoring are you all doing, or have you received from other Black women, Black lesbians?
I received a lot and still do. I would hope that I never get to a place where I cannot learn. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. If so, everybody in here is truly limited, trust me. But I feel like what I have is given to me to pass on and to give to someone else. So I'm grateful if asked. If someone asks, I'm grateful for that. That means that I have given something that made them feel that I'm worthy. And so if they find me worthy to help them in some way, then I'm going to do that. But I'm blessed that I am mentored by some really strong sisters, and I get to mentor some younger, small, strong sisters. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I think I was born a teacher. So everything I learn, I want to show somebody right away. If I make a cake, I want to tell someone else my recipe. You know, some people say, don't tell them everything that's in it. Why not? I want them to enjoy this like I did. So I think mentoring is just a part of my life. And right now, I'm living in a place that a next door neighbor, she's young, went through a divorce last year, but she is so intelligent. She doesn't have like college education, but she knows so much stuff. And if she doesn't know it, she finds out about it. And she's just dropping it into me like, wow, she's teaching me how to do stuff that I never, just the stuff that we didn't get to learn.
Yeah.
And coming here to the South, I'm learning more about African Americans because I was raised basically as a youngster with all white people, and then I transcended and fought to be where I am. And just to learn the history, and I envy you all, the history and the richness and how you can remember and about all of the different things that happened to our people. And I just got so into that, it's like drums beating in me. I want to learn more. I'm like a sponge. I want to just soak it up, So this has been a good experience for me. I love it. I'm so thankful to have had this experience to be here.
I feel thankful too. Yeah. Mentoring, mentored.
Yeah, it's been so much of being mentored. I have an older cousin, Danny, who paved the way for queerness in my family. And so she has poured a lot into me. When I was in college, I was taking my Black lesbianism as very scholarly. And so Cheryl Dunier was a big mentor for me, and her art was mentoring, even though I have no personal relationship with her. As soon as I got to Atlanta, I started to tap into ZAMI NOBLA. And so Marianne and Angela, this whole organization, this space has been mentoring and pouring into me. As soon as I got to Atlanta, I also then got myself a Black queer therapist who has been pouring into me. I can be so happy and at peace with who I am today because of that therapist.
Yes.
God bless them.
Sometimes God sends you a therapist.
Yes. And even this past weekend, talk about Highlander, which is, where I work and where there's a queer abundant. I got a Highlander friend in the room with me right now. And one of the members of the Combahee River Collective, Marga, was there, and we got to talk, and she provided a little snippet of mentoring in that sense. And now that I'm married with a mortgage, people look to me as if I have some type of wisdom.
For real. I need to look at you. Teach me your ways.
Yeah, teach me your ways.
And so I give what little I have, and just enjoy being in relationship intergenerationally. I've heard that the good practice to have is to be in deep relationship with someone 20 years older and 20 years younger, and I try to keep that.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, our time together is coming to an end, and I have to say that this has been one of the most amazing experience. I've never had this before, where I've had elders and folks younger than me, Black lesbians, talking together about things. I've never had that. I hope that we can do this again. I've got one more question, and it doesn't need to be one word. What is your legacy?
I spend my time full-time. What earns a living for me is memory keeping, and like tangible archives, but also through oral history. And I see that as part of my legacy, as like building a path, a trail, so people can know who their radical lineage is.
Come with the breadcrumbs.
I'd say the work. Let the work I do speak for me. Yeah, that would be it. The work.
And I would say love. Love. I just want the aura of love, so people can soak it in and just feel the love and connection.
I feel that in my heart, Reverend Janice. Yeah. I think as I was preparing to come here, our 7-year-old niece and her mother and brother live with us, and the 7-year-old is very precocious. She's 7, and her name is Justice. Shout out to Justice. But she asked me where I was going. I said, oh, well, I'm going to facilitate a conversation. And she said, what's facilitate? And I said, oh gosh, and she always asks me these questions. She asked me the other day, Karima, what's ratchet? And I was like, damn it. Go ask your mama. But I said, I always have to explain myself like a couple times to Justice so I can hear myself say it in the way that it's meant to be received. And so eventually I got to make ease. And I really hope that at least a small part of my legacy is to make ease in communities, with people, with stories, holding stories, facilitating storytelling. And that's what we did. We told stories, and we're holding memories in love, and we're talking about the work and people and not profit and things, I mean, this is literally what we did today together, and I can't thank you enough. So if there's anything else you want to say or ask, we've got a minute.
Thank you to the youngsters.
Yes,
No
thank you
disrespect
so
meant,
very
but you'll always be babies, because I keep getting older. But thank you for my lesson.
Thank you
for
as
that.
well. Thank you.
Yeah. You got to hold school more often. We can catch up.
Yes. This has been a joy. This has been a joy.
I hope we can all stay connected for sure.
Yes.
Continue the conversation.
Yes. There's so much more to say, right?